Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Club Down's Downtime. This week I'm going to have a chat with my dear friend DJ Kane. I'm really looking forward to the next half hour or so, and I hope you all enjoy it. Until then, take care, stay safe, good luck. Hi everyone, and welcome to our 5th installment of Club Down's Downtime. This week I have the great pleasure of spending the afternoon with my great friend DJ Kane. So I hope you all enjoy the next 45 minutes or so, and we'll start the chat and we'll see where it goes. I'm absolutely petrified because I literally don't know what's going to happen over the next 45 minutes. But
saying about 45 minutes, boy.
Well, you know, that's the halves. That's usually about, what is that, 6 pints?
on a slow night.
On a slow night, yeah. How are you keeping? You've kept well over the last 4 months?
Yeah, as you know yourself, it's been a hard time, even though things have opened up now. But initially, it was a fairly big lockdown. Thankfully, the weather was good over that period of time. So you know yourself. I joined you for a few walks, around Rostraver and Leitrim Lodge and the Yellow Water and that, and around a few old places that Pete used to take us running, and found a few new places that, thank God, he didn't know about. So yeah, it's been okay, but great to see things opening up again now. We can get out and live a bit more normal.
Yeah. You're involved with a club again, but with is it under 17s or under 19s?
Under 19s, I sort of started taking them when they were 16, and I've done it this past couple of years. Albeit this year, obviously, has been a bit of a mess. And the under 19 leagues at the minute and down don't start until the 25th of October, which I think is a really, really long time to have the under 19s back training, but no matches basically. So I'm really not sure how that's going to pan out come October time, if clubs are really going to be that interested in the middle of winter.
Yeah, with 19s going back to school and maybe some going on to college, the club might suffer in terms of choices as well. They could be down the packing list a wee bit.
Yeah, well, it could be, and obviously there's some of those guys at 19 are probably starting to play a bit of senior football. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of commitments that they're maybe going to have to give over to different teams. So, and in the Shamrocks, we don't have a large group of under 19s that we can pick from. So we're very reliant that if there's a few guys aren't there, it causes a big problem for us.
Yeah. Well, we'll get serious about the football in a wee bit. I want to take you right back to when you were a Harpo Marx lookalike with a head of blonde curls and really getting a first interest in football. At what age do you remember getting involved? Val obviously was a member. Your brother Val was a member of the 68 panel, and although we were young at that time, did that have a massive influence, or was it not until you got involved at the Abbey and that the football really took off for you?
Obviously the 68 thing and Val been involved as I got a wee bit, it meant more to me and I learned more about it. Given my age at the time, I didn't really remember a lot about it, to be honest. Albeit I just know from a very young age I was always out kicking a football or playing with a football. I'm told that I used to walk around with a football under my arm all the time.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't until I got a wee bit older that I appreciated that, Val had been a member of the 68 team. I obviously had a lot of relations that were involved in football. I would have spent a lot of time out with my relations out in Glen. So going to matches on a Friday night out there, or sorry, at the weekends out beside my uncle's house, it would have been like a weekly religious activity that if Glen were playing at home, we all would have went out with my mum and dad, and we would have went to my uncle's house and watched the match, and then myself and a few of the other younger cousins would have kicked football then after it ourselves. So I think probably those things growing up from a very young age were a big influence in me having an interest in football and having a big interest in Down.
Yeah, you mentioned being out at Glen there at the 4 Mile, obviously where your mum was, and that family are the McCartans of Jim, John, and Mickey. And given that Mickey's maybe a year older, but the other two guys were a few years older, being out there, did that toughen you up a bit?
It most certainly did. You got a very rough and a very abrupt education. As you say, Mickey's just about a year older than me. Jim and John were a few years older than me. And we used to play football in the garden, or indeed we used to play football in the courtyard in the farm. And there was an old garage that was used as the goals. And to be honest, and like a lot of things in those days, there were very few rules, and there was definitely no referees. And in fairness to Jim and John,
that sort of carried on throughout your career, didn't it?
Now you know where I learned it from, and that's the reason I turned out the way I turned out. So I can put all my blame on my cousins and my uncles, Seamus and Dominic, who would have educated you in the dark arts. And then, to be honest, when I was that age, Ross, going out to the 4 Mile and watching games, Seamus would have, Big James and Dan would have been playing football at that time.
Okay.
I would have been a kid along the sideline watching it. And as you know yourself, the football in those days was a fairly rough experience. Albeit for a young buck at the sideline, it was really enjoyable, really exciting. But it was you got a real rough upbringing about what football was all about and how you were meant to behave in the football field and what you were meant to do, and you had to look after yourself. I suppose that's just the lessons that I learned. You had to be fit to look after yourself, and if you wanted a touch of the ball, you had to be able to get it, because if you didn't, nobody gave it to you. So I suppose those were the things that I learned from a very, very young age out there.
As a family, your mum and dad moved into Newry, DJ, and growing up in a very nationalist town, but in an area that maybe was less than nationalist, and certainly wouldn't have been a huge GAA area. Had that an effect on you at all? Because during the 70s and 80s, we probably experienced some of the worst of the troubles. And where you lived at the time in Shandon Park probably was an unforgiving place for any young nationalist at times. And there was very, very few families like yourselves that lived there. How did you cope with that?
Well, when we first moved to Newry, we actually lived in the town. Up near Barcroft, a place called Alien Terrace, actually. Jeez,
you went to the two extremes.
Yeah, so as things got more, I suppose, difficult in the town, my mum and dad decided to move out to a new estate, Shandon Park. And at that time, Ross, to be honest, because Newry was predominantly a nationalist town, quite a lot of the people that lived there were from that background. Well, as people moved out of Shandon Park, there was more and more people who moved in who didn't come from that background.
Yeah.
So it ended up that, like myself, my family were very much definitely in the minority in a lot of cases in the area. So, to be honest, a lot of the times things were okay in Shanton Park. I wouldn't say that, that there was lots of problems, a lot of troubles. A lot of the kids played together, albeit probably soccer mostly, but we all played together and ran around together. I suppose as the troubles got more serious and more bitter, there was a little bit of a division as such. Maybe not so much initially amongst the children, but maybe amongst the adults. Albeit eventually the children probably did go that way as well. So at times, there's no point saying any different. At times we did get hassled and we did have problems and we did get abuse and there were things to us and things to the house and a few windows broken, etc. over the years at different times. And the flags were put up and all that stuff. So I suppose a lot of people growing up, the football and going to play Gaelic was my escape, and going to school to play football was my escape. And at that time growing up, I was playing for Newry Mitchells, and Newry Mitchells probably kept a lot of young lads in Newry on the straight and narrow, because in those days it would have been very, very easy to get caught up and get involved in stuff. So in fairness to the Mitchells, they kept a lot of guys in football and playing football for that period of time when they were developing and growing up. So it was an important part. And I suppose the other part of it was because you weren't getting all the support from all the people in the area, it maybe made you a little bit more determined to go out and play Gaelic and try and be successful with it. But I must say there's a lot of neighbours who were non-nationalists who were very, very good, very nice, very supportive and very friendly.
Good stuff. You touched on the Mitchells there, DJ. My memories of growing up playing underage football for Clonduff was, it was a totally different time than now. So your first time you played probably was under 12, then 14, 16s and minors. And under 12s was separated into, jurisdictions within this. So you had South Down leagues or an East Down league. When we began to play at under 14, we played against your Mitchells team. And that team was made up of players like the Durkins, the Carrolls, the Ruddies, yourself, Sean Boyle and Coochie, Marty Lynch. It was a phenomenal team, DJ. Like even by today's standards, and we've had a couple of underage teams that have dominated in recent years. If Mayo Bridge, for example, the team that Benny and Ronan Sexton and that played on, dominated from 14 right through to 18 and carried it on through. A team here in Clonduff that we watched with Shane Ward, and that was the same. A Kilcoo team that I think won an All-Ireland Fela and then went on to win and provided the basis for the success they have now. And I still would argue that team that you had was a fine underage team that ever came out of this county. There must have been a serious work. Bearing in mind that a lot of you also went to the Abbey, maybe all of that squad went to the Abbey. Was there a big interaction between the Mitchells Club and the Abbey at that time?
Yeah, there probably was, to be honest. There was a few guys at the college, okay. So there was a big connection. We were all training in school together, mostly for the Abbey teams, and then we were training with the Mitchells together. So we were constantly playing and training with one another. So there was a great understanding and a bond developed between the players. But as you mentioned before, they were an extremely talented team. The guys you mentioned, the Durkins, Marty Lynch, Coochie Gallagher, Kieran Ruddy, Arthur Ruddy, the Carrolls, like a lot of those guys, and probably in particular the likes of Coochie Gallagher and Marty Lynch, Marty and Donald Durkin, Brendy Carr, like those guys were like grown men when they were 15. Coochie and Marty Lynch were shaving when they were 13 and 14. So I remember going to places like Kilcoo and the boys in the sideline were shouting at the ref, he's not under 16, he's not under 14, because they were nearly like grown men, and they were tough kids too. They were growing up in there was a lot of stuff going on in the streets between young nationalists, police, the army, these kids weren't, going down and buying sweeties and sitting drinking pop all day.
Yeah.
It was a rough time, and those guys were rough, tough, good people, great lads. Great friendship with them even to this day. But going to a football match to play, anywhere in the county was no problem to them.
Yeah.
They could play anyway. They could play it rough. They could play it fair. They could play it both. And the likes of myself, we just hung on to their coattails, really, to be honest.
We talked about Val at the beginning of the conversation, and Val was the head of PE at the Abbey. Was it difficult playing under your brother at school, and like in an era where maybe match analysis wasn't at its greatest? Was there any dinner table analysis?
There was plenty of analysis when it came to me, believe me, I can tell you. It was difficult, there's no point saying different in that you always felt there was a certain amount of pressure you were under to perform or to play a certain way or to play as well as Val played when he was an underage player. And probably Val expected a lot more out of me. And to be honest, at that stage, my footballing ability and my physical ability hadn't developed at the same pace as some of the guys at my age. So I was playing a lot of catch up, and I wasn't a central figure, So, and probably Val at times thought I should be better or should be doing more, and he was frustrated. I was frustrated. So, there were.
Mommy was the referee.
There were a few visits to the house where I got the odd lecture, and and then maybe a hug at the end of it as well, probably.
Yeah.
But listen, at the end of the day, those were the times, Ross. It's different nowadays with young people and the way that they're dealt with by their adults or their coaches or their managers. It was a different era, and I suppose it was a further development of what I had learned out in the 4 mile when I was a young kid.
Yeah.
I was probably getting a wee bit more of it now,
Yeah. Just as you went through school, would it be fair to say that the next chapter in your life, and then obviously in your football career, had a massive influence and ultimate bearing on the footballer that you turned out to be when you went to Jordanstown? Now, I'm not too sure if you remember any of that time, but
I know it's in Belfast somewhere. And I do remember going one day to enroll, but that's probably about the height of it.
Well, the honours speak for themselves. You have a couple of Sigersons in the 3 years you were there, and 1 year, I think the second Sigerson as captain. Obviously, both of your coaches at that time, unfortunately, have passed away in Charlie Sweeney and the very, very likeable Eamon Coleman, who we went on to, know from county football then. So what I'm really saying, DJ, is that taking all of the foundation work from the 4 mile to the Mitchells to the Abbey, when you arrived at Jordanstown, your career all of a sudden just, I'm not saying took off because you were known to be a great footballer, but in terms of a presence, you really elevated your own game to another level. Was that intentional, or did you just feel more comfortable in an environment where you could test yourself against other players from counties?
Yeah, it was a dramatic change in my career. Up until that stage, I had never played for Down at any level, including minors. Thanks to my old manager Pete McGrath, he wouldn't pick me.
He was a poor judge, I can tell you.
So when I got to Jordanstown, I always had ambitions of wanting to play for Down. The fact that I didn't play for the minors and not me. Okay, I went on and played with the under-21s, but at that time it did annoy me. So I always had the ambition that I wanted to get better. I wanted to further my career. I wanted to play county football. I wanted to achieve things that my brother and my cousins had achieved. So that was always the intention. as you mentioned, the two coaches, Charlie and Eamon, I think were great for us at that time. You know, look, when I was a fresher, Charlie was the manager. And to be honest, Charlie had the great foresight to realise that I wasn't a forward. I played forwards up until that stage all my life. Charlie realised that this guy can't shoot, so therefore he's not a forward.
Yeah, I tell you what, you didn't learn.
Well, I got better at shooting as a defender than I was as a forward. So it was all that practicing with Tommy McGivern, the drop kick. But when I went back into defence, I suddenly found a role that suited me because, you know, I was able to mark tight. I was aggressive. I had a good engine, so I could run. And I found myself playing in a position where those attributes that I had were very, very useful as a defender in those days, because the football was still physical, it was still tight, it was still man-to-man, but there was the scope beginning in those days for guys who were good athletes and good stamina, endurance, to be able to run. And I like doing that. So therefore, my career flourished. I think my confidence grew as well, because you're now suddenly having an influence on games. You know, the fresher team we had was an extremely talented fresher team, full of guys that went on to play county football. We actually won the All-Ireland Freshers title that year. And then obviously that team then progressed into those Sigerson teams. And all of those guys grew in confidence, you know, not just me, the whole lot of us, because now we were travelling the length and breadth of Ireland. We were beating teams now knew about us, teams feared us. Other teams were talking about us as players and as a team. So altogether, your confidence was growing and growing all the time. And you know, I don't think any of the boys would deny it. We certainly played hard and we partied hard along with it.
Yeah. That it's still daylight here. The watershed isn't gone, so we'll hold that to the end of it. No, because I didn't go to college, but I remember going to Sigerson's at that time, and it was a phenomenal, like every bit as much as that Mitchell's team were a really good underage team. That Sigerson team that you had, DJ, was nearly a team of men, which, you know, I know you were students and all the right, but physically, athletically, even mentally tough, you know, arrogant, knew how good you were, and didn't want, maybe, I don't know why it was, because for a while Jordanstown, you know, weren't in the Sigerson, they played in the Trench Cup, etc., and all of a sudden they got access in, and it was that chip on the shoulder to say, these boys we can take these guys. But there's certainly, for a couple of years there was some phenomenal matches. No,
they were a fantastic team. Like the 86, well, certainly the 87 team, one of the first 15 were playing inter-county football, and including some of the subs who obviously were used a lot as well. But all those guys were playing senior inter-county football on a regular basis, and for good teams. So when it came to the Sigersons and the Ryan Cup there, which was the league version or the league section, you know, the quality of the players was phenomenal. You know, like from the likes of Down, you had Barry Breen, Mal O'Hare, Mark Bowl, all playing county football. Derry, you had Enda Gormley, Dermot McNichol, Armagh, you had Colin Harney, Ger Houlihan, you know, all top thrown, Stephen Conway, Stephen Rice, you know, Noel Donnelly, all good inter-county footballers at that stage.
Yeah.
So the talent in the team was phenomenal. The two managers worked very well together, Eamon and Charlie. You know, Charlie had been with us since we were freshers, so we had a really special bond with him. He was nearly like a half father figure to a lot of us. Eamon was the sort of the more, you know, the loose cannon. You wouldn't know what Eamon was going to do or say at any given time, and he did that. So they had a great partnership, you know, so maybe good cop, bad cop sort of stuff. But again, we would have given a lot to those guys because we were close to them. And in those days, the county players did not sacrifice their college careers. they fully committed to their college careers in terms of training, playing matches. It was really very, very important to them, which was to our benefit, because we were extremely close. You know, we all lived together in Belfast in different houses. We all partied together. We all went out together. You sort of had that bond.
I can testify to the importance you put on your college career, but I have to say, from a county player too, there wasn't a case where you didn't train with the county, because I'm going to talk now about coming on to the when we broke onto the senior county team, and you guys always came to Ballykinler and trained, as well as train with Jordanstown. Now, I think Sean Smith, who sadly left us last year, passed on, brought you onto the county panel, and I'm gonna.
I know what you're gonna say.
No, I'm gonna let you say it, but before you tell it, you didn't use one as an excuse for not to train to the other. Like, all the guys trained with us.
Yeah. No. As you say, correct. Like, there was no excuses given. You know, the university expected us to train, and we did, and the county expected us to train, which is what we did. You know, I'm sure over the years there was the odd night you may have had to miss because there was a match coming up, but by and large, you know, there was never an issue for the players, and certainly, as far as I know, there was never an issue with the managers, because I think both managers knew that the training and the football that was going on in the university and the county was of a high standard, and we were all benefiting from it. You know, and obviously, as you said there, from when my career got better at university, I was actually asked into the county panel. Another great friend of ours who passed away recently, it was John Murphy who actually rang me up. It was actually shortly after my father had died, and he rang me up and he said, would you like to join the county panel? And given it was so close to my father, then I wasn't sure. And then I thought, well, yeah, I think he would want me to go. So I went to training the first night in Ballykinler. I think I came across with John, very excited, you know, dying to make a great impression and do well, and, you know, win every ball, kick it over the bar, all that type of stuff. Walked into the changing rooms in Ballykinler, sat down quietly in the corner, not sure who was beside, but sort of out of the road a wee bit. Said hello to a few people that I would have known, and the manager, Sean Smith, came over to me. And as he approached, I looked up, because obviously I was expecting to say something or shake my hand, and he says, I don't know who you are, but you're very welcome. So that was the start of my county career. And if you had any thoughts of being a superstar, or you were the next best Gaelic footballer in Ireland, that was certainly put to bed very, very quickly. But I must admit, he was very nice and very genuine in the way he said it. But that was it. Yeah, that was the start of it.
If you can forgive him for that slight failing, I really enjoyed Sean. I thought he was probably one of the first coaches that I came across who actually talked to you about positional play, timing of runs, job description, what you were supposed to do as a wing back or a midfielder or as a wing forward. I honestly do believe he was probably a way ahead of his time. He was a wee bit eccentric, and maybe that was part of the reason that he was loved. You know, some of his team talks where he would come out of the shower and the towel soon disappeared, and he still continued with the team talk. I think in today's era that just might be questioned, but yeah, he had great enthusiasm, DJ.
Oh, brilliant! He was, as you say, he was a wee bit eccentric, and some of the things he was saying and coaching, you know, you may have to look at it for a couple of seconds to see or understand what he really was talking about. But when you actually did think about it, you realise that he was correct in what he was trying to get you to do and the ideas he was trying to get across to you. And he was innovative in his training and what he wanted to do. And as you say, the guys, we all did warn him because he genuinely was a nice man as well.
Yeah.
He was very fond of the players and would have always been very helpful. The team talks again, you had to focus on what he was saying, and he would have the milk bottles, the empty milk bottles up on top of the pool table. There was a pool table in the changing rooms in Ballykilner, as you remember.
That's
right. There's many changing rooms now have a pool table in them. Certainly, I don't think the Dubs use it for analysis. But he would have the milk bottles been moved around, and you're trying to follow where he's going with these. But as you say, he probably was ahead of his time in a lot of things, both from a coaching point of view and a tactical point of view as well.
Yeah, he. I suppose that because Down hadn't made the breakthrough, or our annual summer journey ended either with a first round or semi-final defeat in Ulster. It gave you and others the opportunity to get to the States for a couple of summers. And you went to Boston and worked for a painting contractor called Liam Austin. Would that be? How did you get involved with that? Like that's a pretty high-profile job.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like when the first time I went to the States, I was only about 18. And I did a work for a guy, a Donegal man actually, a fellow called John McDavid, and who Osty had been there previously. So I suppose through Osty, through that contact, obviously went to the same team, and Osty was sort of like the star player for the team was called Galway, that we played for. So Osty was sort of one of the main attractions for the summer, and he went by the name of LA. He didn't go by Osty or Liam. It was LA has arrived in town. And of course, whenever LA arrived in town, John McDavid would go out and collect him personally in the Cadillac and take Osty into his home, put Osty up in his own home. The rest of us were in apartments. But Osty needed to be in a house because he had all his good clothes with him. The likes of his pink T-shirt and his white shorts. And yeah, me and Osty ended up painting together for quite a few summers. Now, Osty always did the top part of the house, and I did the bottom part of the house, and it took me a wee while to figure this out. But obviously, Osty would go up top because the sun would be beating down on him from early morn, and as the sun moved, Osty moved. So it wasn't a case that Osty painted half of the top and I painted the bottom half. He just painted as much as he could as the sun moved, and he went round the house thus. So, and I'm underneath trying to paint and keep up with him. So that was Osty's view on painting. But again, with great times with Osty, I playing with Galway. A lot of the Down fellas played. Greg played with them. Wee James played with him. Mickey Linton played with him. Mickey Doyle played with him. Mickey McCartan. So there was a lot of Down connections with Galway. So great times out there. Great times.
But towards the end of the 90s, and I think there was a couple of changes in management, Down finally got over the line in 91, and without talking too much about the actual year of 91, did it surprise you, DJ, given of who you played with during your university years, how you were playing and who you were playing against in club football? And obviously Queen's and St Mary's also had pretty strong Sigerson teams at that particular time, well populated with Down players. Did it surprise you it took us so long to make the breakthrough, and why could we not?
I suppose it probably did a wee bit in that when we left. Most of those guys that we're talking about left the universities around 88, 89. We were all in the county panel at that stage. And I suppose going in, we would have thought, right, well, we have good enough players coming here, so we should be fit to come up and compete. But for a couple of years, we didn't. And I think at that time, Down maybe didn't have a belief of themselves come Ulster Championship football. They were looked upon as being a bit of a soft touch, maybe by the likes of Tyrone, maybe even Derry to a certain extent. So I think it took us a few years to blend into that type of football as well. And I think with the appointment of Pete, I think Pete did make a conscious decision that he went for a certain type of footballer, a certain type of player who he felt was needed to compete and win an Ulster Championship. So I think that sort of fell into place with Pete and John Murphy coming in. Us getting maybe a year or two older, a wee bit more experienced and a wee bit more toughened up, because as you know yourself, in those days, Ulster football was certainly a very physical experience. So I think it did take those couple of years, and maybe we would have thought it would have happened a wee bit earlier. But I think, as I say, with Pete coming in and John, it certainly changed. The way down football was looked upon as maybe a small, fast-moving, nice football team, as to when the likes of Tyrone were saying that, Down were a team of men when they weren't a team of men.
Aye.
So it took a bit. I think it took a bit of time for that transition to happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Pete and John also made a conscious decision that whoever was going to wear a Down shirt knew exactly the responsibility they had in wearing that. Pete obviously had been really successful at Underage and had a number of Underage titles, won All Irelands at the college and also with the Down Minors. And John was a link to our most recent success, albeit 20 years ago. But I do really believe that they left no one under any doubt that if they were going to be on that panel, what their job consisted of. If we move on to 94, and while you'll never get another chance to do anything for the first time, so 91 was so special in a lot of ways. 94 was, I feel, a very important year in our personal careers because of the 92 and 93 and the way we fell so easily at both hurdles first time out. Obviously, it was an incredible personal experience for yourself as well, because not only as obviously as captain, but you're also, you had a great relationship with us as players. Was it difficult? Did you find it difficult to separate the responsibility to the management, to the relationship, your individual relationship with some of the players, or did it just come natural to you, given the fact that you had already, at this stage, probably captained every team that you had been involved with?
I had been captain before teams, and I think given the fact that a lot of us had come up together, obviously in 91 there were a few guys who were a bit older than us that, while we knew well, we hadn't come up with. The 94 outfit was more of a team that we had grown up together, with a lot of guys around our age. Okay, Greg might have been 2 years older than us. Apart from James.
Mickey played in the 60s.
Yeah, late 50s, I think he started. So I think, and given the success we had in 91, I think the relationship with the players was easier from that point of view, because the older players in that 94 panel, as you know yourself, because of what happened in 92 and 93, we really felt that we had come up short when we shouldn't have, and that there was more success in us. So the guys were really, really easy to work with. Everybody was basically on the same page. Okay, maybe one couple of times during the year, you had to speak to a few players about, get serious, getting focused, don't be playing golf, or don't be going here or going there. So, but those things, there were small things, and I think, as you probably know, in 94, the players really ran, and this is no disrespect to Pete and John, the players ran the changing room, they ran the training pitch, they ran the camp, and all the managers had to do, and I'm not saying it was just but all they had to do was point us in the right direction, and whatever training they wanted us to do, whatever football they wanted us to play, it was very much a player-driven campaign during that 94 season.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest abilities that the management developed, and probably only with experience, because I think we'd be pretty, we wouldn't be telling the truth if we said that we were easy to manage. There were a lot of, there were a lot of egos in that changing room, but they actually took a step back. No one, and I do feel that it was I do feel making you captain was huge for the whole panel. But they were able, as a result of that, then to take a step back and let us at it. And yes, maybe stepped in at different stages if training wasn't going well or whatever. But in fairness to them, whether it was a conscious decision or not, they did take a step back and let players at it, and I think that proved its worth in the long run.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, and as you know yourself, I suppose John was the big link between the players and the management. You know, Pete probably needed a wee bit more convincing to take that step back, and I would say it was probably John who was more of that way of thinking and probably developed that. Now, as the stage wore on, I think he realised what he had to do was coaches and guidance in terms of playing the football. The rest of the stuff the players were going to run and dictate themselves and make the demands. You know, and as it turned out, it worked well in terms of for us as players, but it also worked well for John and Pete as the managers. You know, because they could concentrate on the things that they needed to concentrate on. We could certainly dictate what was needed to be done by us. So therefore, you had a situation where you were focused on the things that were really important to you, whether you were a manager or a player, and focus on them and make sure those things are working well. All the side shows, all the side distractions were completely taken care of. So that's going to interfere with the roles that all of us had to play, whether a player or a manager. You know, and it's to say, I think John was very good with that there. You know yourself, it was the odd argument and the odd row, but it was all solved fairly quickly.
Yeah, and I think probably, I know looking back with a brave deal of clarity, any row was always for the best. You know, it was a discussion that had to take place, and after it, whether both parties agreed or nobody agreed, didn't really matter. The discussion had to take place, and you just got up and got on again. One of the things from that era that probably rankles me a little bit to today is that we weren't able to get a third title. I know you made reference to a couple of the lads who were older than that. Do you think there was any reason for it, or was it just that we weren't good enough? Age, injuries? Did we take the eye of the ball? How did you feel that after '94, the direction we took?
I do think that the desire after '94 was there as a team. Maybe we needed, I think maybe a couple of things. I think maybe we needed a wee bit more talent to help as a panel of players. I do think, obviously, maybe as we got a wee bit older and we had more miles on the clock, I think injuries started to play a major problem for the team. If you think back to, say, the '96 final that we lost to Tyrone, we had lost a lot of players. Barry didn't play, Eamon didn't play. There was other guys who weren't. Gary Mason ended up playing as a defender, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Shorter defenders, which meant there was somebody else had to be pushed up into the forward line to play where Gary normally played. So I think a combination of things dictated that the team had changed around, and the injuries were beginning to have effect because, albeit I do think Tyrone were a good team in '96, in fairness to them, and they were beginning to break through. I think given the players that were missing, I think Greg actually played in the full forward line that day. He didn't play centre half forward. So there was lots of injuries, lots of positional changes, which I think had a detrimental effect on us. Because I think if we had got out of Ulster in the '86, we would have been hard talked to in the All-Ireland again.
I think that is one of the ones that I feel got away. Given, just talking about generally the squad at that particular time, and today's format, do you feel that maybe not tactically, because it's a totally different game, but do you feel that our players had to be, if they were exposed to the pressures of today and maybe even given the facilities of today, do you think that squad could compete in today's game, or would it just be a step too far? Because sometimes we're pretty good at looking through rose-tinted glasses.
Oh, yeah, I can, as if your own era was the best era, and I suppose at the end of the day, all you can be is the best of your own era. But I do genuinely think, I think a lot of those guys, particularly probably the '94 team, were very, very talented footballers. They were very, very good athletes. And I think in today's game, they would have been able to cope very, very well. Now, albeit that, the likes of Mickey and James probably wouldn't have got as much room nowadays as they maybe did in those days. The game was different. But, I think a player of Mickey's ability and a player of James's ability, the likes of yourself, Gary Mason, I think those guys were talented footballers, and talented footballers will always play well in any era because they'll adapt their game, whatever way they have to train or play or be coached. They will do that. The innate natural ability that they have in terms of their footballing ability, their skills, their intelligence on the pitch, that would come through in any era. Yes, in the '90s, Down were probably a big, physical, athletic team, but they were also a highly skilled team, right throughout the pitch. Maybe apart from John Kelly, maybe I would say he was highly skilled. But they were all of that.
You'll suffer for that.
I know, right? But you're amazed. Well, he'll be delighted his name was mentioned. That's it.
You better mention Paul Higgins then.
Well, he was the next one I was coming to. Higgins as a goalkeeper nowadays would probably be brilliant. But those guys were all good football. The likes of Conor Deegans, great athlete. Yourself, Gary, great athlete. Sparry Breen, a great athlete. So I do think those guys would have thrived nowadays as well.
Yeah, you would have enjoyed an old wing back role yourself these days. Marking nobody and bombing forward, hey?
Exactly, sure. It's the perfect place to play. Then that you for a lot of teams, you have no responsibility. You just go forward whenever you want. There's plenty of defenders back. You don't have to mark anybody too tight. You've got a free roll. Jesus, sir, who wouldn't be good playing like that?
I think it would be a wee bit remiss not to mention the club at this particular time, because you had you were playing with Shamrocks at the time, and Shamrocks had come out of Division 2 into the senior division, and I think you won the All-County League. Was it 97, 98?
I think it was 97, probably. Yeah, I think it was 97. 98.
And while you had just left the senior panel, you were playing arguably the best football of your career for 2 or 3 years as, I'm not going to say as player manager, but as player manager with the Shamrocks and playing at centre back. You obviously were enjoying football at that stage, DJ.
Look, I did, yeah. It was a great time for the Shamrocks. We had a really good team at that stage, a real strong panel. We were a big team. For years, the Shamrocks hadn't got much. They were a typical town team, probably, what they would have been described as. But, again, a bit like when Pete came in, we changed that attitude and we changed that way of thinking, and we became a really, really strong team. We could go to any club pitch in the county and perform well and win. And we won a lot of games, semi-final of the championship as well, a couple of times. Should have progressed a wee bit further, but didn't. But we were certainly very, very competitive at that stage. The fact, I suppose, that I wasn't playing county football obviously gave me a little bit more rest. I wasn't training as much. I was able to train with my club all the time. You know, I was playing. John Murphy was in helping me as well at that stage on the sideline. So you had that help with John. But I did. I was sort of in the mid-30s, but I was still in very good shape. I was still very fit. You know, I still had a good engine at centre half back. So it was certainly a couple of years that I really enjoyed playing, because you sort of had the freedom just to concentrate on your club.
Yeah.
And the club at that time, the team was strong. There were a lot of good players. So it was a good time.
We were talking about, you know, playing as a club and playing as a club player and a county player. The demands on a county player now are huge, DJ, and the opportunity for teams outside of 3 or 4, maybe 5 teams to win on All Ireland seem remote. How does a county player weigh up I suppose, how does he weigh up the pros and cons of playing? Because if you're on a club panel and you don't make the team, or club senior panel and you don't make the team, you can get a game of the seconds. If you're on a county senior panel now and you don't get a game, you don't make the team, where do you get your football? Because it doesn't allow you, the facility's not now there to go and play with your club team. How long can county football sustain the demands that it has on players at the moment? Especially if you're not, if you don't really have a chance of winning.
No, listen, it's a really good question, and the answer is probably a wee bit unknown, in that, as you say, you don't know how long young guys nowadays are going to be willing to devote their time and effort to playing county football when, as you say, their chances of success are extremely limited. B, they're not getting maybe regular county football. They're on a panel, so they're not allowed to play for their clubs. You know, in our day, we would have missed very, very few club games. Even come championship, when we were playing the championship, club fixtures were played and you were expected to play. So to expect young guys in this generation and the generations coming after us, you know, I'm not sure how you're going to be able to encourage and sustain those guys to give up so much time, so much effort to keep playing inter-county football. Whether changing the format of the championship might be something that would give a new breath of life into the championship and give more opportunities for teams to get a run in the championship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that may be something that they could look at. But unless you're a Dub, a Kerry, Mayo, or Tyrone at the minute, or maybe a Donegal coming, you know, your odds on winning an All Ireland in a 10-year career with your county are very, very limited. You know, and it is a worry that the GAA need to be looking at, because the modern generation of footballers will not play Gaelic football just because it's their culture, it's their tradition, and that's what their parents teach them to do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't operate like that anymore. They don't have that viewpoint anymore. Life and their attitudes are very, very different than it would have been for us growing up, where that would have been your sole aim from your own point of view, and probably your family point of view, and your mates, even your mates' point of view. Nowadays, people are saying to them, "What the hell are you doing that for? So what do you get out of that for?
Yeah.
What are you going to get?"
And in the last 2 weeks, you know, we had young Jack McCaffrey announcing that he was taking the time out, and I thought that was an incredible statement, you know, because Jack, I don't know what age he is. He's maybe 26, 27 or in around that. He possibly has another, given his level of fitness, another 4 or 5 years. So potentially he's another 3 or 4 All Irelands he could win. But now it might have something to do with his job. He's a doctor, and he probably has experienced the last 4 months something totally different. But in our own county, young Ryan McAleenan has just announced that he won't be returning to the county panel.
Oh, right.
And
Didn't know that.
To me, I just noticed it this morning in the paper, and I felt that that's a huge statement. That's a huge statement that probably, arguably, our best defender over the last couple of years is, and a young fella who would sleep, breathe, and eat football and county football, has decided to walk away. So I do think it's a challenge that the GA face on how they retain that interest.
You know, I think the GAA are going to have to. They're going to have to seriously sit down and look at this, because I didn't know about Ryan, but there's probably Ryans in every county in Ireland. You know, making those type of decisions. Jack McCaffrey, I suppose it's a slightly easier decision for him in that he's won 5 All-Irelands, he's won this, he's won that. So, you know, he can take a break, probably come back and still maybe pick up a couple of All-Irelands because of Dublin. Yeah. But if you have young lads like Ryan McAleenan making those decisions in different counties throughout Ireland, you know, the GAA, in terms of the long-term future, they're going to have to sit down and actually speak to these people and speak to the young GAA players that are playing county football and ask them, you know, what can we do to make this a sustainable, attractive option for young people like yourselves and young people who are coming after you, so that we will have a game, we will have an All-Ireland Championship whereby, you know, all the counties in Ireland feel involved and want to be involved, and therefore then players are going to be willing to continue playing the game. Yeah.
Which brings me on to the committee that you're involved with Paddy and Greg and a few others in the county. And you were tasked with the idea of looking at the underage development and where it was in down and changes that may have to be made to it. And I know for a lot of reasons it hasn't probably progressed as everybody thought it would at the beginning. But how do you see that, or how would you feel that we need to do things in down differently? Because our senior team is a product of our underage setup. So it's so important nowadays to have that correct and right and best practice, so to speak, if we are to hope to challenge in Ulster again. You feel that there are changes have to be made?
I think, you know, when the committee was first set up, well, it's a good few years ago now, you know, I think it was the right thing to do. I think, you know, the development squads and the underage structures did need changed and looked at and improved. And in fairness, the committee, you know, I think did go some way to achieving that. You know, I think the development squads this past few years have been, you know, better organised, better prepared, better managed and better coached than maybe had been going on in the past. And that's no disrespect to the people that was there before. I think this past while, you know, it's become a bit more professional, a bit more organised, and there's more resources put into it. So that will improve anything if you address those issues. And it's down to the good work of the people that are doing giving up a lot of voluntary time, coaching these teams and doing different things with them, like analysis and skills and fitness. You know, and that's good, and there has been improvements, but there you know, we now need to take that a stages further. You know, and it's not to become this elite, totally professional Gaelic footballer at 15 and 16 years of age, who spends, you know, 4 nights a week in the gym and all this. It's not that they're. The way I would look at it is that we now want to make the development squads, you know, a whole program of developing the young player, both on the pitch and off the pitch. You know, we want to develop them physically, you know, football wise. We want them to be mentally strong, mentally aware, tactically aware. But we also want to develop them in terms of being good young people, so that hopefully we bring them on to develop and play with down. But if during the process we don't develop that, they're still benefiting in what they've been with us for a couple of years, both on the pitch and off the pitch, so that all the time we're developing the character of the player, so that he goes back to his club and he's a good, solid character in the club. He's a good, solid person in the club. and he can then, develop that amongst his own friends, his own players, his own teammates, and even his own family. So for me, it's a whole program of being on the pitch and off the pitch, where we can develop these guys so that they're a credit, to their families, their clubs, and the county, and they get that education, not just a footballing education, but we should be trying to do as much as we can with them in terms of their own, mental health development, their academic development, so that when they get older and they go into the world of work or university, they have those skills and they have those abilities and strengths whereby they can work through those areas to their own benefit and the benefit of the people around them. Now, to do that, it can't happen overnight. There has to be resources put into it. There has to be the right people put into it who have skill sets in those areas. And at the end of the day, it needs resource, because, like it or not, things like that need finance.
Yeah.
And they need the people to do them who know what they're doing, who want to do it, who are good at it. And if you want those type of people, you have to look after them. That's just as simple as that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where the frustration has been, because that next stage of development down hasn't happened. There's no point saying any different. It's not the fact that it hasn't been suggested or it hasn't been proposed. It hasn't happened.
Yeah. And that will, for me, that's the next chapter in down football, what if and when that happens. I'm not going to keep you too much longer, and it's been great, but I can't really let the conversation go without talking about the last 12 months and how difficult, personally, for a lot of us it has, with, shortly his anniversary, Brian has passed away, Brian Conlon. Then we got the news of Eamon. John in February got dealt bad news and recently passed away. And with all of that, you lost your own mum on Christmas Day. It's been a horrific 12 months for you personally. Do you take a look at things differently and hit reset and reevaluate, and that, I suppose, immortality that we all thought we possessed a few years ago, does it all kick in? Because having lost mum and dad over the last few years, and then Timmy Doyle, Mickey's brother, our good friend, passed away a couple of years ago, actually 2 years ago at the end of next month. It was, Jesus Christ, it was hard to get our head around some of it.
Yeah, as you know yourself, like the two of us spent a lot of time going to different wakes and different funerals of different people throughout the year. And, as you said, it started off with Brian. Like, I'd known Brian. Brian lived around the corner from me in Shanton Park, and we went to school together, played in the same teams together. And yourself, he was a phenomenal figure initially at the football, and he got injured, but a phenomenal figure in the community, and did so much for people and did so much for Down. He was a massive loss. Then going to the likes of Eamon and John, and then my mum passing away too. Like, it's been a hard 12 months of different people passing away. Albeit, in fairness to my mum, she had a great run. She was nearly 98 years of age. But the other ones were certainly a shock to us.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, there's no doubt about it. And I know me and you have discussed this a few times on up over the Yellow Water and the Red Bog. Probably talk more that we're older now than we did when we were younger. It certainly changed my mindset about so many things of what's really important, what really needs to be looked after, where you really need to spend your time, quality time. And that's not taken away from the football. We still have a love for football. We still have a passion for it, and still be totally committed. But it does put a lot of things into perspective of what life is all about and what you need to do and enjoy it, and enjoy your friends, enjoy your free time, enjoy your passion, but enjoy your family as well. So it certainly changed a big lot for us, and I suppose suppose Eamon probably was the big one in that factor for us, you know,
Yeah.
because obviously he'd been a great mate of ours, and as you know yourself, we travelled a lot of roads around Ireland together.
I was actually thinking about this today, and do you remember the day we played Louth in a challenge match or we played Sligo maybe in Louth at the Clans pitch,
Yeah.
and there was something tea and sandwiches were in the clubhouse after. Tea and sandwiches were in the clubhouse afterwards, and we were training the next morning in Uri in the marshes, and I think that was the first time ever we were early for training, because we just got home.
Got home is great.
We had the gear and all with us.
Oh,
jeez!
I remember it well. You know.
Oh, stop!
Like, if the players playing now could go back and watch older players doing the likes of that, they wouldn't believe it. They would think it's absolutely crazy. Jesus, what are these guys get?
On that note, what is the next chapter? What's on the bucket list? Is Paddy's tournament on it?
Yeah, I think we've already discussed that now. I've been down to it a few times, but we're penciling in Paddy in February-ish. Hopefully it's still going. So we'll do a long weekend down in Kerry, and I think we're planning a couple of other gatherings for the 90s team once everything sort of it gets totally back to normal. Might involve a wee bit of golf, but well, certainly not for me.
In fairness, will you start to play now, because you've been caddy in quite a few outings and did pretty well.
Outstanding caddy. Well, to be honest, I might actually start, because from watching a few of the boys, there's absolutely no way I could be any worse than them. These so-called professional golfers. So yeah, I might actually take a swing or two.
Good stuff. Well, listen, I'll let you go, boy, and as always, It's a great pleasure. Thanks a million, and with the help of God, we'll see each other on the mountain pretty shortly.
Yeah, definitely.
Good night.
You bring the 6-pack.
Good luck. See you. Bye. Bye.